And we are back with our Transits Fridays. I'm forgetting the name of my own YouTube videos. So let's have a look at what's happening astrologically from Friday today, the 16th of August, until next Friday. So obviously, one of the biggest things that are happening this week is the blue supermoon, full moon in Aquarius, which is happening on Monday, the 19th. So we're definitely going to have a look at that. And there's also the beginning of Virgo season. So there's Virgo season. There's a couple of important squares that are happening here, and suffice to say, is still that Jupiter Saturn square that we talked about. Um, so let's have a look. I'm gonna share my screen. That Jupiter Saturn square is kind of stepping a little bit more into our lives this week, really. Let's put it that way. So here we are with the chart for Friday, today, the 16th. Now, let me know in the comments how you're doing. What's going on for you? How is this week for you? This week, as always, has definitely, not always, but definitely being a little bit easier for me since we talked last Friday. So finding a little bit more balance between life, work life, and all of that. But also a little bit more comfortable with the whole issue of values and kindness, and the thing about being exposed and dealing with, family issues and comments from people that you don't even know, and things like that. I definitely feel that things were way easier this week somehow. So how was it for you? What's going on? I think August has been a little bit easier on me particularly. But obviously, I think that will depend on the astrological transits that you're having as well. So this is the transit for today. And as you can see already, we have that Jupiter Saturn happening. It's still happening, it's still applying. And we have Jupiter moving direct. So approaching that Saturn, but Saturn is moving retrograde. So Saturn is also applying and moving towards that Jupiter. So that square is happening from both ends in the in this, in this week. So also, I forgot to say actually, so this is Saturday tomorrow, 17th of August. So a square happening at 17 degrees on the 17th. There's a lot of 17, which adds up to 8, isn't it? Which is an interesting number. Anyhow, the square is happening here already on Saturday. And remember what we talked about in the video last week? This has to do with a cycle of Saturn and Jupiter that's happened in 2020. So the beginning, the intentions that we set when Saturn and Jupiter met at 0 degrees, December 2020, at 0 degrees Aquarius. So the same degree where Pluto is sort of hovering over for a little while. So that Saturn Jupiter is there. Mars is obviously throwing a little bit of fire, a little bit of, more log into the fire of this square as well, and adding potentially an element of impatience or wanting to act a little bit more impulsively. And, there's a little bit of that energy there because Mars is the god of war, right? So there's something of that energy that's thrown in the mix, and potentially wanting to voice up something or communicate something, in that sense of delays and obstacles that Saturn usually bring. I think Saturn always bring that sense of timing and the understand of timing maturing, and that delaying immediate gratification. That's a very Saturn kind of style. So that Saturn square to that Jupiter Mars, there's a bit of a conflict here between what we want to get done and the ideas that we might be having and the structures around us as well. So it might not be fully possible yet to take action, to make it work, to make it happen. And that's also really very much connected with Mercury being retrograde as well. So Mercury ruling that Jupiter, Mars in Gemini and being retrograde, telling us slow down. It's like two kind of aspects in the sky saying, hey, slow down. Don't worry. You don't need to make it all work yesterday. There's time to build up and to make it happen, whatever it is that you're thinking about. Whichever part of your chart is being picked up by this square as well. So let me know in the comments what parts of your chart is being picked up. If you have any planets in your chart around these degrees of the mutable signs. So if you have, planets between 14 and 19 degrees of the mutable signs, then that square is being very relevant to you personally as well. So you're feeling that very strongly, that push and pull, that sort of like, I want to move faster, I want to expand, but that Saturn kind of reeling back in, that energy holding you back a little bit. So how can you find the middle ground? How can you hold hands here between these two energies? And as I talked about that as well last week, I think I have talked about, we have that Jupiter Saturn midpoint here in Taurus. So Taurus is the mid path between that Jupiter in Gemini and that Saturn in Pisces. And it really does take us all the way back to the idea of values, becoming very serious, very much aligned and conscious of what your core values are, what our core values are as individuals. And, that's going to help us, it's going to guide us throughout these conflicting energies and potential situations that might be coming up. But the other interesting thing happening this weekend in particular is Mercury going to be in the heart of the sun. That's going to be on Sunday. And obviously, depending where you are in the world, but that's Sunday for me here in Brazil. Mercury will go to the same degree of the sun day before the full moon as well. I think that's relevant. I think that's something there that we can become more aware of, that we can really discover more or have insights. Leo is, the star sign that's also connected to the heart anyways. So this feeling of Mercury being at the heart of the sun in Leo is really bringing to, the forefront anything that has to do with where we put our hearts into, and authentic communication and being more playful, reclaiming the inner child and all of that stuff as well, with that Mercury Sun conjunction in Leo. So Mercury at the heart of the sun retrograde, obviously that needs to be mentioned as well. With Mercury being at the heart of the sun retrograde, it means that we're going to have Mercury at the heart of the sun again once Mercury moves direct. And that's going to be happening in Virgo, because we're going to have the start of Virgo season Friday, this coming Friday. So in a week time, basically. So there are a couple of insights of Mercury in the heart of the sun that are slightly different. One will be in Leo, one will be in Virgo. And we're going to be realizing something about who we are, authentic communication, but also how can we serve best, and all of the Virgo things as well. How can we how can we organize our lives in a better way as well, in a more efficient way that will enable us to offer better services as well. I think there is a little bit about that as well. So Mercury at the heart of the sun, blah, blah, 19th of August, that's the full moon. So here is the super blue moon, full moon in Aquarius. Now, is a super moon because it will appear to be closer to us, or it will appear larger in the sky as well, which I really look forward to be able to see. I find very magical. In fact, I'm wearing a dress with full moons in it, and homage to this coming full moon in Aquarius. So it will appear very big in the sky, which for me symbolically does say that this could stir up more feelings, although it is a full moon in Aquarius, which is a bit more rational. It's an air sign and etc. But it could stir us up a little bit more because it's larger in the sky. but also is a blue moon because this year, so we don't have two full moons in August, but this is the year that we're having four full moons in this season. So from the summer solstice all the way to the equinox, there are four full moons rather than three. And so the third one then becomes a blue moon. So it becomes connected um to the, the name blue moon, so we can keep in order all of the other names of all of the other full moons as well. Now, I don't know symbolically what I'm made of that. I don't think, personally, I don't think that's of any particular, wow factor relevance. But the fact that it's going to be bigger in the sky definitely does tend to call my attention a little bit more. Now, what I really want to discuss though with this full moon is the aspects that we have in the sky, is the configurations, all of these configurations that the planets will be making, which will be reflecting this particular energy, this particular culmination, harvest, clarity, something that's going to come up, something that's going to become very bright, big in our consciousness as well, about our inner lives, about the unconscious as well, which is something that the moon represents, our emotional inner life kind of area as well. And then obviously you need to bring this full moon into your chart, find out, well, how's that full moon is falling, so you can add more layers of interpretation and significance as well to this full moon. But the first thing really that I want to point out to you is that this full moon, 27 Aquarius, 27 Leo, is forming an exact square to Uranus. So Uranus is a 27 Taurus, which for me gives us a little bit of a double whammy flavor of Aquarius and Uranus, and something about freeing ourselves, awakening, having sudden insights, having a sudden strong need to break free from ruts, from anything that really feels like is not quite where we want to be, or is not quite what we want to do with our lives. Again, place that in your chart to find out more about this full moon, and where is this sense of freedom coming from? Where are you going to be really experiencing it? But Uranus has that sort of rebellious energy as well. And the probably going to be an energy in the air of rebelliousness, of not wanting to be told what to do, of not wanting to follow rules or what other people are saying, and potentially really breaking free, breaking away from something that you've been kind of standing for a long time, but you really don't feel like it anymore. As usual, my advice here is to try and sit with this energy as much as you can, to ponder on it, over this week, and really see what's true and what's not, what's really possible in terms of changes, in terms of that sense of rebelliousness as well. What is worth pursuing and what isn't, because you might regret. That's the thing with Uranus as well. We do something impulsively and then we might regret later. So just make sure that you're really aligned with your soul purpose, with your authenticity, with your sense of what your real needs are, before making any strong, decision, or taking any, you know, um, extreme action in the situation. But there is something about challenging codependence as well. I always say, when Uranus is like, under the spotlight in a transit, in a full moon or new moon, that cycle has something very much to do with challenging codependency, challenging that lack of authenticity, of individuality, of personal freedom, personal space as well. So all of that will be under the spotlight here. And it's in Taurus again. We talk about the Taurian sort of flavor again, because the midpoint, like I said before, between Saturn and Jupiter, which is in square the whole week, is 2 degrees Taurus. And then we have that Uranus in Taurus as well, in a square to the sun and the moon during the full moon. So it's really calling attention to the Taurian principle of life, the Taurian experience. And for me, Taurus at best is really being grounded, being self-reliant, but also being in tune with values, knowing what's valuable and what isn't. So this week could give us an opportunity to really separate what's valuable from what we don't think is valuable, and we don't think we should be dedicating ourselves so much to anymore. I think that's a really core kind of message. Another important flavor and energy here, obviously we've got that Mercury in conjunction to the sun, which we talked about already. So again, that feeling of having insights, seeing something, receiving some message, or finding something out, or all of that sudden ideas, sudden new way of thinking, rewiring our brains is like a Mercury square Uranus potential, really changing our perspective on something. And something about ourselves, about our sense of specialness as well. Now, obviously, again, I've said it so many times, but I really feel I need to repeat here. The duality of Aquarius and Leo is going to be talking about being the best that you can be as an individual. We're not talking about the shadow of Leo here, being needy, attention seeker, seeking validation, blah, blah, blah. But we're talking about being unflinchingly authentic and being yourself, being generous with that as well, and opening and holding space for other people to be able to be themselves as well. And in that way, you have a very, very unique contribution to the group, which is what that moon in Aquarius is also talking about. Community, groups of friends, and really bringing your unique contribution there to the group as well. Okay, now the other important flavor here, obviously, is still tied to that Jupiter-Saturn square. We've got Jupiter in Gemini square, that Saturn in Pisces. Mars is still involved in the picture. Mars at 19 Gemini, but also Venus will be involved. So we have another T square during this full moon. So we've got Venus at 18 Virgo, opposite Saturn at 17 Pisces, and then a square that Jupiter Mars. And I think the challenge here is between give and take as well, is between how much do I give, how much do I take? Is it balanced? Is it not? Do I need to learn how to ask for what I want or what I need? Do I need to learn how to go and get what I want rather than wait for other people to provide me with? Some of these questions are here in the mixture. And Venus Saturn opposition like that is going to be triggering self-worth issues as well. Do I feel worthy of receiving or worthy of my achievements? Am I good at celebrating the fruits of my hard work or not? So that's kind of there as well, symbolized by this T square. And then Mercury is retrograding, coming to trine that Chiron, which will be happening later. But that energy is kind of there as well. This is Tuesday, so we've got an exact square coming up here, or we've had already that exact square. So we have that 19 degrees, 20 Gemini, Virgo. This is Wednesday. The sun is at 29 Leo already, and Mercury is really coming to that trine to Chiron, which I think is potentially a blessing in disguise in terms of being able to integrate some of these healing insights or insights about our individuality and, positive individuality. We're not talking about toxic individuality. So this is Thursday, 22nd of August, and that's when Virgo season starts as well. And that's when we have Mercury at 23 in a trine to Chiron. So this could be eye-opening, with the sun moving to Virgo and us sort of naturally shifting the energy towards more focus on our day-to-day routines, on our daily rituals, and reorganizing our lives, reorganizing our routines, our the foods that we eat, the work that we do, the contributions that we want to make as service, the sort of useful contributions that we want to make that Virgo represents. And Mercury being the ruler of Virgo, being retrograde and in trying to Chiron when that happens, I think that's very relevant. And it could be a very healing Virgo season because of that aspect, when we have the sun shifting to Virgo as well. And here is the exact square between Venus and Mars, and all the challenges around give and take, compromising and taking action. And they're both ruled by that Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograding Leo, authenticity, authentic communication, etc. Thinking about our worth as individuals. In a trine to that Chiron is a kind of a real strong potential for healing some of these issues reflected by that Venus Mars in square. So that's kind of what is in store for us for this week. And obviously, one of the key energies or energy releases is really going to be connected to that full moon in Aquarius and the sort of Aquarius Leo, Mercury retrograde as well. The Jupiter Saturn is square, and this sort of duality here that we're going to be facing throughout this week. And I think, coming from a constructive approach, I do think that there is a lot of healing that can happen during this week if we really pay attention to these energies, if we really flow with these energies and look deeply at any conflict that might come up during this week as well, especially about give and take, that Venus Mars involved in the Jupiter Saturn. So that's it, really. That's what I wanted to share with you for this week. Let me know in the comments if you're having any plans, any ideas for this full moon. Where is this full moon going to fall in your chart as well? And I'll be seeing you next week. Have a wonderful full moon. Mwah! Lots of love, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye then.